shirts and anything flat, and cups and mugs and hats and stuff, and the dye sublimation printer itself. And I wanted to go ahead and get that class knocked out of the way. I've used one before at my daughter's house and wanted to be able to, use ours. And I had a photo that the minute I saw it, even before we had our equipment, I knew I'm going to make a mug out of that picture. And it's it is a picture of Isaac holding a John Dale mug. So I now have a mug of Isaac holding a mug of John Dale. So, if anybody wants to take a picture of me holding this one and make another one, you're more than welcome to. Came out nicely, a little fade at the bottom. At first I kind of thought, is that a weird design on his shirt? No, it goes all the way over. It was where the image was maybe a little too low on the cup and the heat didn't get to it quite right because it starts to change shape down there a little bit. So little quirks with it, you just learn as you go. But other than that, I think it's great. I love it. I totally love the caliber of, it's just a photo image and it really looks good. And probably much to Isaac's cringe, I come really close to making a shirt to match to wear today. I just didn't get around to doing it, or I'd be up here wearing the shirt as well. But I will pass this around, and I encourage everybody to go ahead and take that class, and then when you get the opportunity, because making cool stuff for the office or gifts for friends or whatnot are endless. Whatever you can come up with, you can put on a mug or a hat or a shirt. All right.
I was in that class with Brian, and I left my mug at a coffee place in Knoxville somewhere. So if anyone, no, on purpose, if anyone finds it and takes a picture with it, I will buy you a coffee. But I'm not going to tell you what coffee place or what the mug looks like.
It's obvious, though?
No. I'm just going to get random mug pictures now. This is going to be great. Next up, we have David, who's showing off tanks.
Hey, y'all. One of my hobbies that I don't get to do very much these days is scale modeling / tabletop gaming. And so I have a trio of tanks that I had made for an event several years ago and ended up not going. And so the tanks never got done. And this weekend, I pulled them out of boxes and found my paint stuff and just finished up some of the weathering on the treads and stuff and put some varnish on it, and I think they turned out pretty good. You can, it'll focus. Might be. But these all started out as gray plastic, and painting takes can be pretty boring because they're, you slap green on them and they're done, unless you do a bunch of weathering on them, and that's kind of what I find entertaining. So I got, a bunch of chipping and rust and dirt, and, these were kind of late World War II Soviet T-34s, and one of the things I modified on these that I was kind of proud of was, you look at some of these pictures of tanks that have been on the battlefield, and they catch a rock or something, and the fenders are all jacked up on them. And so I took an X-Acto knife and a heat gun, because these are made out of ABS, and I bent my fenders all up on them just to make them a little bit different from the stock kit. So there you go, tanks. Oh, all kinds of questions. All right. Wes.
Weathering, so was it just sandpaper or
So there's a number of different techniques that I've used. if you look, the chipping there's a couple different ways you can do that. I did that with a piece of like sponge or foam, like open cell foam, and you can, dip it with some paint and just essentially do it painting. There's also the hairspray method where you can spray your model down with hairspray and then paint over it and then go back with warm water and actually chip the paint off. I've done it on other models. This one, just because I had 3 of them to do and I wanted some consistency, I just did the sponge method. You can't really see it, but there's like rust streaks and like water streaks and stuff. That's kind of done using oil and dot filters. So the main paint job is done in acrylic. You can go back with different colored oil paints and thinner, and you can kind of create these cool streaking effects. If anybody wants to see these, up close later, there's a lot of nuance that the overhead's just not really picking up that well. But I thought they turned out okay, so. All right.
I think you did a tremendous job. I thought that was rusting on metal, and even the 103 on the side is kind of eaten away.
Oh yeah, I did hand paint that. There are like the star, and this is actually a decal, but the numbers, they would have been hand painted with like a brush, in the field. So I hand painted them with a brush, on small scale.
How did you get the chipping off?
Well, it's actually, in this technique, it's an additive process. So it's actually covered up to look like it's chipped away, but it's like a, underneath color that's, over top of the white. Sue, I think you had a question?
Yeah, you kind of answered it. I was wondering if that was a stencil or if you hand painted it.
Okay, no, I did hand paint it. Like I said, there are some decals, but the chipping technique is the same, whether it's over the painted. Brian, it's a T-3485, so it's the late war model. That also, there's probably still some in use somewhere, because there was a gazillion of these all over Eastern Europe. That it? All right.
Those were great. Like Duskin said, it legit looked like it came out of a box in your basement from 50 years ago. Next up is Christine, who is bringing cake, pictures of cake. Oh.
We're still excited.
For anyone who was here roughly a month ago, I brought cake in for everyone to try while I was troubleshooting to make a wedding cake for one of my friends that needed to feed a little over 100 people. So I actually brought pictures of the final product on request. So that is the cake slice. Is it focused? I'm not good at these things. Well, it's cake. You can see it. And it had raspberry filling in the middle, which you guys didn't get to have, and then that's what the cake ended up looking like. So to get the thing I was having the most trouble with was getting the outside of the cake dark enough so that it would show through the frosting properly, and I ended up doing sugar and butter up against the cake, and then lining the cake pan. Lining the cake pan with parchment so it wouldn't stick, and it actually kind of worked. So there you go.
And that just made a darker outside crust?
Yeah, so that you can kind of see the crust show through better. Because it's pretty pale. It's a lemon cake, and it was pretty pale. And didn't have any eggs in it or other things to help it get more color. So that's it.
What kind of frosting did you go with?
So I did not end up going with the frosting that you guys had here. I ended up going with a quick version of a Swiss meringue buttercream, which just did better for this particular situation and was more stable. It was kind of almost monsooning that for the wedding. I literally ruined a pair of shoes in the mud. So it was an interesting delivery experience. But I was worried about all the moisture and went with an icing I knew would tolerate the moisture better. So, and it did. It was fine. It didn't fall apart or anything. So, yeah.
How'd you refrigerate it? You were concerned with refrigeration?
So this particular frosting didn't have to be refrigerated. It was stable at room temperature for more than one day. So that made me feel good. Didn't have any raw egg in it, that kind of stuff. So yeah, it ended up solving that problem by avoiding that problem. Yeah.
How much does that weigh?
I didn't carry the thing all together. I assembled it on venue because I don't have a delivery truck. I have a Honda Accord. So I assembled each layer separately at Ray's brother's house, and then brought them in individual cake boxes so that I could just pop them together. And she wanted a kind of a rustic look, so I didn't have to keep a perfectly smooth outside, which was really nice for my situation. And then we added the flowers on site as well from the florist. So, thanks. Turned out okay for just what she wanted. So,
Did she like it?
she loved it, and a lot of the guests liked it too. So that was good.
Excellent job. Thank you for the update. Next, Sue is giving also an update of her grandchild's costume, part 3.
Just to refresh everybody's memory, this is the pattern I chose. I was going for this look. I'm going to have a layer of here, but it will have the hood on it, unlike that one. So we have that. Also, last week I showed the fabric with my 17-year-old grandson's help. This one is for a 4-year-old. So this is a different picture. The back side, of course, of the fabric and the tissue on it. I did not want to pin because that pattern was so huge. Those of you who were here saw it would almost fit the 17-year-old. I didn't want to cut it to size. So I used my heat pins that are supposed to be used for quilting. The beauty with those is you hit it with an iron and the line disappears. And that sounds great, except when you put it on an airplane to ship it to a quilt show, cold reconstitutes the color of the ink. So all these ladies were showing up at the quilt shows with their lines showing. And I did a test with my home freezer, and sure enough, they reappear. So I'm not going to be using these for quilting at all. And I thought this would be a great use for them to, draw the patterns out. They're fine tip. So I used my dressmaker pattern. Another tip I had asked for is on my pin cushion. It's very slick on the side, and I have a hard time holding on to it, and I had asked for suggestions. Someone had said a rubber band you get off broccoli. It's beautiful. It works great. I can hold on to this now. It's no longer hitting the floor 5 times a day. So that was cutting that fabric. Sorry here, apparently my phone is having technical difficulties. Where at home, I was having helper difficulties as I was moving the pattern around. She loves to help, no matter what. As you can see, she thinks things should be placed in maybe different spots than where I want them placed. What this is showing is where the layers should be that are on the pattern. When cutting the cotton fabric was very easy, but then when I went to cut the netting for the over, the cotton, I have a slit in the front, so I know it would go over the head. But the netting, I wasn't going to do that. So I went in my closet and got one of my pullover sweatshirts with a hood and followed that neckline, crossing my fingers that would go over his head too. So I had to draw, or in this case, I showed the pinning of a different neckline, and I used those pins to cut it. The problem with using those pins you need to do it on a flat surface. If any of you have ever worked with netting before and tried to use pins, it's much like trying to put a nail in a fishing net, right? There's no way those pins are going to stay there. So I finally realized I have, I don't want to spoil too much of the future here. I have some salvages that I had cut off the other netting, or I had cut off the other one. So I used those and pinned that to the netting to hold it together. And that worked really well. One thing I had read on YouTube, hints about, well, all right, fine. Oh, that I definitely don't want to put up, because that takes you to the end. And I don't want to go there yet. So one of the hints I had heard on YouTube channels working with netting is that the netting slides around a lot as you try to sew it. So I left, because I was doing 2 layers of netting, I went ahead and left the pattern pinned to the netting and then ran it right under the sewing machine to put those 2 layers together. And then I took and pinned those 2 together to come up with this other one. Yeah, so what I did find when I cut that neckline bigger is that the pattern, the hood given with the pattern, no longer fit the neckline, so I had to adjust that as well. But I think I got that all better, and I'll save the rest for next week in another installment. I hope you guys are kind of keeping track of notes of what is going into the costume, because I'm hoping you're going to guess what the costume is for this grandson. That will be revealed on the final night, which will be the 24th. I'll be revealing. Anything else? Okay, thank you.
I don't know. I have no idea. No guesses, Sue, yet. Sorry. Next on the list, we have Mark, who is bringing a hammer, a special hammer that only he can lift.
Does that work? Yeah. Kind of. Okay. I'm going as Thor this year for Halloween, so I thought I'd make a hammer. And this is, I think about 15 pounds worth of aluminum. So the fun part was bending. This is 1/8" aluminum, and it doesn't like to bend, so I used a propane torch. To soften the edges. I also used a circular saw to cut slots in it so I could bend it, sort of like bending something along dotted lines. I haven't finished it. I've got caps, little fillers to go in here. I haven't put them in here yet. Let's see. This one you can see that's showing up. I used band clamps to hold it together while I was putting in the tack welds. It is solid aluminum. I'm going to try to get some leather from the shop in there and put a cap on it and call it good. Anyway, any questions? Yeah, there's some leather out there. I need probably 24 inches worth of inch wide, and I'll see if there's anything out there. And I've got a plug. And since I like my neighbors, I want to put something on the top like felt, so when I put it down on a coffee table, I don't scratch it. That would be just an appropriate thing to do. My welding, you can see that is crappy, but it works. If you look in the remaining holes, you'll see there's more of this crappy stuff on the inside. I've learned you really do have to weld consistently to get any better. Anyway, any questions? Sir?
Yes.
Ma'am? Oh, yeah. You just need a different type of process, a different type of wire. This is a spool gun, so it looks like a little toy gun with a big wire on the back, or big spool on the back and a motor that feeds it out. And it also has argon? I forget. I'm set up for both steel and aluminum. But yeah, this is pretty crappy, but it's getting better. And so you don't want the first of any product. You want the second or third or fourth to come off the assembly line. Any other questions? Okay. It doesn't return, so if you throw it, it's gone.
Don't throw it, please. Next up, Tracy is showing a haunted house and going to talk about the event on Friday. Okay.
Hi guys. I made another haunted house, and I'll stand up here. Can you see that, Billy? How's that? There's one side, there's another side. So, spray painted a Barbie house again, and interesting side note is I liked the flat black that I had done on it. I thought, but you know, the more I stared at it, the more I just thought it didn't, you know, pop or anything. So I took and did a nice clear coat on the outside, and I didn't think I'd like it, but I really kind of do. It just makes the whole thing stand out a little bit better. So that was just, I think Mod Podge is what I used. So I liked it. It turned out pretty well. The only thing I will say is that I did it in stages. You know, I'd paint a little bit and go do something else, and wash my brush out each time. And if you get bubbles in the brush and it's not completely dry, you're going to get bubbles on your on your clear coat. It's just, unless your brush is completely dry and there's no water in it, you're just going to get a little imperfection. But it's not bad. It's okay. Then I filled it with some stuff I printed out, just models I liked, you know, free 3D models. I love this snail, this articulated snail. It's really fun. And just a bunch of other fun models that I like to paint and glitter up and just have a good time. So if you guys like to paint or you just want to hang out, come on Friday. We're going to have like a spooky paint 3D models, and, you know, bring your own beverage. I'll have some cider, and it'll be fun. So, and I'm going to give this away. So if you like this model and you want to stick your name in the hat, and you might just take it home. Any questions?
Where's the hat?
I will bring the hat, the big crazy hat.
So will it be given away on Friday?
On Friday, I'll bring, this is going to stay here. And then after, while we're painting and having a good time, we'll have a drawing and somebody can take it. Yeah.
What are the windows?
Oh, these right here?
Yeah.
These are actually part of the Barbie house. I just kind of taped them off so that, because I liked this plastic, the color the plastic was already, so I just taped it off and so it wouldn't get spray painted. But anything else? Any other questions? Okay, come on Friday if you guys want to hang out and paint and have a good time.
I think on Friday there's also going to be adult beverages, so maybe
Yes, adult crafting.
adult crafting, so maybe don't bring your children. It's a adult beverage night. It makes your painting better. Next on the list is Cyrus, and he's showing a welding table.
So I tend to watch a lot of YouTube videos of machining and machine shop stuff. And so one of the problems of doing that is you develop this tool envy. And because all these guys with the big machine shops on YouTube, you know, have every tool in the world, it seems like. But anyhow, so I've got a little small welding table I've had for years, but I kind of wanted one that was heavier and a little bit bigger and also flat, a flat surface. So I looked on Craigslist a little bit. I didn't really see anything. Turned out my brother, older brother in Florida, had a piece of steel, about 24 inches by 66 inches or something like that, that 5/8 inch thick, that he was willing to give me. So he did. Before I could bring it home in my truck, I had to cut it in half because it wouldn't fit in the back of the truck. But that was okay because I didn't really want it 6 feet long and 2 feet wide. I wanted it more square. So I cut it in half and then ended up piecing it back together more square. So this is just a picture of unloading it. You know, it weighs about 300 pounds. So I had to use the engine lift to do most of the work, moving it around. First thing I did was try and get the rust and scale and stuff off of it. But the rust came off fine with a wire wheel, but the scale I could not get off with a wire wheel or a sanding wheel or anything. I actually had to grind it off with a regular grinding wheel, which took quite a while. But I wanted the bare metal look on the tabletop. Then I welded it together, which just isn't oriented quite right. But let's see if I can get this to switch around here. Maybe upside down. Anyhow, I took the two pieces and ground a bevel on the edges for welding and put them together and tacked them together and, you know, tried my best to make it a good flat weld, which was not that easy, it turned out. But anyhow, I think I got it pretty good. Whoops. Then, let's see which way we're going here. Got into edit mode, sorry. Cancel that. Okay, so then I had to get some legs for it. So I repurposed an old engine lift that had been in a fire. And so I cut up the steel from that into 4 legs. They weren't all the same size, but that didn't really matter to me. I mean, but they are all the same length. And to make sure they're the same length, I put them on the milling machine and set up a little jig to make sure they got to be the same length. Okay. Can't really see that there. Oh, there we go. So that was the machining content of this. Then I put to support the table, I put an angle iron frame underneath it. And this is assembled it or welded it together upside down. I think. And I was using the engine lift as the sort of platform to weld it on, which worked out well. So this is kind of what it looks like finished, almost. The only other thing I did to it, well, there's a close-up of my welds. You can see they're slightly variable quality, but a grinder takes care of a lot of that. Grind off all the bad stuff. And then the last thing I did was had some shelving that I wanted to make use of to put a shelf underneath this. So I had to make some brackets to mount the shelf to, and the shelf is a type of shelving that sort of hangs on 2 round rods, and so I can't really see it too well in that picture, but that's what it sort of ended up looking like. And I've got room for another shelf down below, but I just haven't put that on yet. So that's about it. The whole thing, I'd say, probably weighs 400 pounds because the legs and the angle iron and stuff was all pretty heavy. but it's a very nice, flat, you know, surface now to work on, to weld on. So I'm very pleased with the way it turned out. Any questions?
Are you gonna drill any mounting holes or anything?
Well, not right away. It's not that easy to drill a lot of big holes in 5/8 plate. I don't have a mag drill, you know, to do it with. So I've got a couple of holes in it. I put some threaded holes in each piece, in the center of each piece, just so I could pick them up with a lifting eye and move them around. So I've got those, but I have the edge is, you know, the angle iron is not right at the edge, so I've got a 3 or 4 inch border around the edge that I can clamp stuff with. But I imagine as I go along, I'll find a need to drill a hole here or there, but I'm not going to just drill a whole grid of holes. Any other questions? Well, not that long. I mean, the prep takes a while to grind the bevels in and stuff. Probably took me at least an hour, maybe 2 hours. The welding probably took me another 2 hours because I had to make 2 or 3 passes with my little small welder that I have. So I ended up getting sunburned on my arms because I was doing it with a short sleeve shirt on. So it was a little bit of time.
One other question, are you gonna do anything on the top to keep it rusty?
No, I'm gonna keep it sort of wiped down with, you know, a little film of oil, but a lot of what I do is oily anyhow, so it probably just naturally will have sort of a protective coat on it. But I mean, if it gets any rust on it, it'll just be surface rust, and it'll be easy to get off with a piece of sandpaper or something. All right, thank you.
Last on our list tonight, we have Andrew, who has a light-up tip bucket.
I'm stunned you read my childish handwriting.
It's not terrible comparatively.
So this is, I don't know how, well anyways. Well, this is my light up tip bucket. About 10 years ago, I saw my cousin playing out there off of Myrtle Beach. I'm like, well, he's got just a gum bucket, just cut with a hole in it. I'm like, you know what? How can I make this better? How can a person as me make this thing better? I'm like, oh, lights. We're going to make lights. We're going to make this thing light up. And so the idea is with this is that I got a Walmart strand of lights, portable battery pack. And I'm like, well, if this is going to be a tip bucket, you got to be able to separate the lights between the money and, you know, the lights and the money. I'm like, well, okay. So I come up with a matrix of wood and everything, and it works pretty well, actually. It's kind of stunned. This is all kind of a prototype kind of thing. And it's just a simple little tip bucket idea I just came up with. I started working on this just a couple days ago, and I've got a better lid being printed right now, and I've got the lid being printed. It's got like the spiral pattern in it, and it helps the actual lid stay put. And see it as of right now, it just kind of slides around and you can take it off easy. But the new lid, I've got a spiral on the end of it, on the inner part of the lid, so it'll actually stay put. And I've also got holes being printed out on the side of the lid, so it'll have like a little handle kind of situation like this. So like that. So that's the basic idea. So yeah, any questions? Cool, thanks.
Thank you, everyone. Some classes coming up and announcements. Tracy already talked about the Friday night social thing. You can get tickets you can get tickets for all of our classes on knoxmakers.org/events, and we hope to see you Friday. Next Thursday is Machining 101 at 6:30 p.m. That just went up today, so there are plenty of tickets. Maybe, I don't know, unless it was like bought out in the past hour. But get on that if you need to get machining authorization. Next Tuesday, we have a Tuesday night talk. I don't know if anyone of you were here a couple weeks ago when Rihanna showed her cuttlefish mask. She is doing a long form talk on that, about half an hour, about the process she used to make the mask and then what she is doing differently with her next octopus mask. So that's next Tuesday. After the show and share bit, we'll have like an intermission, and anyone who's not interested is crazy and can go do something else. But if you are interested, you can stay in here and listen to her talk about the mask making. And then next Saturday is a super fun and busy day. That is in the afternoon. There is Stitch and Bitch. So that's like our fabric arts social time. You can come and bring a fiber arts project that you're working on and chit chat and hang out from 1 to 4. And then Saturday night is our annual Halloween spook show put on by our lovely Isaac, who picks out a movie that no one has ever heard of except for him, and several spooky shorts, and there's snacks, and there's decorations, and you may dress up if you like to. It's more fun, but you don't have to. But it's really a good time, and I encourage you to go. There's sign up for that. It's no cost for members or guests of a member, but we would like it if you RSVP on the events calendar so we know how much food to buy. So please come out to that. It's a really good time. As far as announcements, there's not much to say. If we could get someone to volunteer to change the air filters. Thank you. And we have a scavenger hunt for anyone who would like to find a full trash bin and take it out to, most of them are good, but there might be a few hidden full trash bins. So if any of you find one, please take it out to the dumpster. And that's all I've got tonight, so go have fun.